This has got to be one of the toughest lists that I've ever had to create, but after days of deep thinking, here are my top 10 favorite X-Men from the comic books. What's up guys, welcome back to Superhero Legacy. My name is Liam, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over my top 10 favorite X-Men. I'm confident to say that the X-Men is my favorite team in all of Marvel and in DC Comics. Growing up, I loved these characters so much because I was so interested in all of their superpowers. I thought they were really cool. But over the years, my perspective on the X-Men has drastically changed. What makes the X-Men so special to me and a lot of people out there is that they're representative of something greater than who they are. They represent some strong value or theme or some philosophical idea, and there are reflective images of the world that we live in today. Everyone, no matter what life circumstances you are in, no matter what struggles you may be experiencing, no matter how many people you believe don't really understand what you're going through, I think people were just able to connect with any of these X-Men and see some semblance of themselves in them, and that is why these characters are so special to a lot of people, and that is why they are so rich, so multifaceted, and this is the reason why the X-Men to me are my favorite group of heroes. I think you could ask anybody who their top 10 favorite X-Men are, and their list will be drastically different from anybody else's list. And that's kind of the beauty of the X-Men, is that there are so many great characters and they all bring something unique and new to the table, and your love for any specific X-Men shows a little bit about who you are, what kinds of things you might be going through, the important values and themes that you keep close to yourself, and quite frankly, the perspective on the world that you see. I am deeply passionate about the X-Men because they are so relatable. I think that anybody can connect with any of the X-Men on some level, and that's really why this team is so good. Not because they're a group of characters who have all of these amazing, cool abilities, but because of what they represent, what they mean to people on a personal level. I want you guys to know that this was an extremely hard list for me to make because I love so many of the X-Men, and it really could have been a top 20 list, but I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible. But let's go ahead and talk about my honorable mentions, because there are some characters who I felt bad not including them on the list, and I had to give some appreciation to them in some way. I'm letting you know that there are even more characters beyond this honorable mentions list that I love, but I'm trying to make this as exclusive as possible. My first honorable mention is Kitty Pryde. I love this character so much because she's so soft and innocent. She's so lovable. She's like the heart and soul of the X-Men a lot of the times, and I really came to appreciate her in Joss Whedon's astonishing X-Men run. Much respect and much love to her. My next honorable mention is of course going to be the founding member of the X-Men, Charles Xavier. I love Professor X because of what he stands for, why he created the X-Men. I love him so much for his indiscriminate love for all mutants out there, no matter what experiences they have gone through or what kind of low places they have come from. He always just holds out his hand for everyone and really teaches them to be a better person. And I really like Charles Xavier and his idea of coexistence with humans. My next honorable mention is going to be Emma Frost. I love Emma Frost so much because she started out as a villain of the X-Men, and I think that she's gone through a lot and she's changed and evolved so much as a character, and she really goes through a lot of internal struggles with survivor's guilt and everything that she did in the past. But she's a really good character and she's kind of grown on me over the years, so that's why she's on here. Next honorable mention is going to be Deadpool. I really love this character a lot. I think he's unique, I think he's different, and he's special because he's one of the only characters in Marvel Comics who understands and realizes that he is a comic character, which makes for a lot of good fourth wall breaking jokes, and that whole perspective of this character is really something cool, I always thought. But I can only really enjoy Deadpool in small doses because he can get annoying to me. But I do love him. I think he's a good character. My last honorable mention is going to be Jean Grey. Now, historically, I've never been a big Jean Grey fan, but I have gained a newfound understanding and appreciation for her because I do realize that she has grown so much as a character. She's just come a long way from when you looked at her when she was created. Now she's this mainstay X-Men who people love because she is known for her compassion, her heart, her just pure goodness, and yeah, she's gone through a lot and she's changed as a character, so this is the reason why I'm putting her on the list. Alright, with those out of the way, we are going to be starting off with my number 10 on my list of my all-time favorite X-Men. Number 10 on my list is going to be Colossus. I love Colossus so much. I always have, and the reason why he made it onto my list is because he is a gentle giant, and I love that about him so much. We all need just like a big cuddly teddy bear sometimes, and Colossus is that character. He has got this tough, hard exterior. Literally, that's his ability, is being fully encased in metal, but on the inside he is so soft. His heart is so pure, so good. He's compassionate, he's loving, and there have been many times in the comics where he doesn't even want to use his raw strength and his mutant ability because he doesn't really agree in violence and he doesn't want to go down that path. And of all things, he likes to paint. He's an artist, and that really brings out a side of this character that you never would have expected from this giant, strong guy. And it really changed the societal standards of masculine men. Just because you're big, just because you're tall or strong, does not mean you have to be a meathead, does not mean every big person out there is just a douchebag or someone who just handles all their problems with a fist, who likes to punch things. Like, you can be tall, strong, tough looking, etc., but it doesn't mean that you're dominant, you're always aggressive, that you have shielded yourself off from your emotions, that you can be actually vulnerable. And this is why a lot of people like Colossus, is because he represents a character who breaks that boundary, who kind of crosses that societal threshold of just because you look big and tough looking does not mean you're assertive. And I just love that aspect of this character. He's so heartfelt, he's so like innocent and vulnerable and so soft spoken, but he's just got this big looking scary presence, and when you think of him initially you just think that he's strong and powerful and there's not much to him, but there's actually a lot of layers to that. And another thing that I really like about Colossus is that he's willing to sacrifice himself for everyone else, for the greater good, no matter what may happen to him. I would say morally he's one of the best like good-natured characters in all of the X-Men, and we just needed a character like this. We still need a character like this, one who represents, you know, being gentle, being good, being compassionate, and all of those good valued things in times of lowness, in times of darkness. I love this character so much. Much love to Colossus the Gentle Giant. But coming in at number 9 is going to be Rogue. Now, one of the reasons why I think Rogue was very appealing to me as a character was because when I was reading comics as a kid, I always thought it was really cool that these mutants had abilities, these superpowers that were awesome and cool looking, but I never once stopped and thought about the other half. At the end of the day, these mutants don't get to choose their abilities. They don't get to select some cool, awesome looking power. Like, they just get what they get, and it's either something really cool and awesome looking, or it's just a power that is literally like Rogue's, where she sucks the life out of everyone. For those of you who are not very familiar with Rogue, her mutant ability is like absorption. She quite literally absorbs like the energy, the life. She can take away power. She can kill people with just a single touch. She's been even known to like take people's memories away. Like, her ability is literally subtracting a person's life from them. So like, imagine what that does to a person who wants to do the right thing, who wants to be good, and that just makes for such a great character arc. She wasn't always an X-Men. In fact, she was a villain of the X-Men like Emma Frost, and then she eventually became an X-Men, and she was taught to use her mutant abilities for good, to help people rather than to take away. And that's one of the reasons I really like Rogue and why she's so interesting to me, because she has every right to use her abilities for bad, to hurt people, to take away something. But instead, she stays with the X-Men, learns to control it, be better than her mutant abilities, and rise above her past to become someone better. Her redemptive arc is so strong and special, and she's a constant reminder to me that no matter what happens to you, no matter what bad hand you get, you always have the option to be better and use it as a motivator and to do the right things, to make the right decisions. And also, her romance with Gambit is, for me, one of my favorite like superhero romances in all of Marvel and DC Comics. I just think it was so well done. It worked for me, and I really liked their dynamic. But yeah, also Rogue was like my first comic book crush, so yeah, I really like that about her too. But moving on, number 8 is going to be Iceman. I love Iceman so much. He's so good, and I'm sad that in modern comics right now, he hasn't been doing much lately, and he's not as popular, I don't think, as he was earlier on. He's always been one of the younger members of the X-Men, so naturally he was a little bit more immature, a lot less serious. He was the one to always be cracking jokes, and he was always the happy one, the optimistic one, the one that had fun, and he reminded me a lot of Spider-Man in a lot of ways. He just got this youthful and charismatic energy to him, and his personality is like funny and humorous, and having some of that young spirited tone was really necessary. But more importantly, Iceman really uses his jokes more as a facade, as a barrier from his pain that he experiences on a daily basis, his personal struggles that he goes through with his family, and the fact that he is homosexual. Especially during those years, homosexuality was a really hard and tough thing for a lot of individuals, and Iceman was a character who represented the internal struggles and problems that arose. And I think a lot of people were able to connect with him on a personal level because he shared a lot of the experiences that real people have had. He was rejected by his family. It was hard for him making friends. He really is an insecure character, and he had a lot of struggles with the fact of him being gay. And so it was really something new in comics, and a lot of people respected and liked him for that. And that's really what I'm talking about here, is that these X-Men are cool superficially, but if you look at them deeper on a more personal level, like all of them have something more to offer. And yeah, he is this witty, jokey, very happy, youthful person of the X-Men, but deeper down, he has these experiences that really hold him back, and he's insecure, he's sad, he's lonely a lot of times. And that's why he joined the X-Men and loved being around them, because he found this second family in them. He loved being around all of these people who had these abilities like him. Charles Xavier, along with some of the other X-Men, they always supported him, they always stood by his side, and they really served as those people around him who didn't judge him, who didn't ostracize him or look at him any different from other people. Plus, I always just thought that his mutant ability was so cool, just being made completely of ice, and he can manipulate and control the cold around him. He's actually been classified as an Omega level mutant, which means that he has no upper boundaries to his mutant ability, and he's one of the most powerful members in the entire Marvel universe. He can freeze the water molecules in the air and even in people, and he can create planet-scaled blizzards that could freeze over the world in an instant. He's really powerful, but I think what's really interesting about him is he never uses his powers in that way. Like, he's still true to his personality. He never turns arrogant. He never is show-offy about how epic and how powerful his abilities are. He's never like that. He's just always this fun, lighthearted, jokey character who stays true to his youthfulness, and I just really like that about him. But moving right along, coming in at number 7 is going to be Storm. Storm is just a pure badass. Like, just imagine being a woman of color in the 1900s and how hard it was for females to kind of, gain power and gain friction and become a person of popularity. Like, that was what a lot of people really liked Storm, is because she was just this badass female character. She's just truly an inspiration for a lot of people out there, really showing off that you can do anything, you can be anyone you want to be. Like, as long as you put in the hard work, as long as you believe in yourself, you can do it. Storm had a tragic backstory and lost both of her parents, and resulted in a life of crime. She was a thief until Charles Xavier kind of recruited her, and then she joined the X-Men and became this huge, epic, popular figure for female badasses, and she was just awesome. She's also an Omega level mutant, I believe. She's extremely powerful. She's able to control all facets of weather. Her powers are so cool. I always loved her design. She has even become the leader of the X-Men multiple times. She's just very strong. Physically, yes, but like personally and internally, she's also a very strong character. Yeah, I just love Storm, so we're just going to keep it moving on. Number 6 is going to be Gambit. I believe Gambit was introduced by Chris Claremont, if I'm not mistaken, in the 90s as one of the new members of the X-Men. But I've always really liked Gambit. The first just being his mutant ability, I think, is so cool. His mutant power of being able to just kinetically charge objects and make them explode on impact, that's just so unique and cool. Gambit is also very skilled in hand-to-hand combat. He's pretty smart, and yeah, this is a character you really don't want to underestimate. He's super cool, super skilled, and I think his design looks very awesome. His trench coat, his bow staff, his hair and everything. I know historically he's been like a ladies' man. That's been kind of a part of his personality, and a lot of people out there think he's attractive, and yeah, I can't argue with that. He is. But one of the reasons why I love Gambit is because he's a multi-layered character, and he is probably one of my favorite Marvel anti-heroes. He reminds me a little bit of Wolverine in a sense of, like, he's not the most heroic person. He doesn't always do the right thing, and I think that he's morally skewed, but I love Gambit because when it matters, when it counts, when things are getting serious, Gambit suits up and gets it done. Like, he's got your back, he'll do the right thing, you know, he fights with his heart. Like, on one hand, he's isolated and he wants to be separated from everyone else and be alone and be his own character and uninvolved, but on the other hand, he's loyal to the X-Men. And so he's a really complex character because it's like, well, what do you actually want? Whose side is he actually on? Is he really a good person? Is he doing the right thing? Or is he there half-heartedly, kind of going through the motions, not fully on the side of the X-Men and just kind of there? And I think that's the beauty of this character, is that we don't know. And I like to think of it as he is this character who wants to strongly be on his own. He wants to kind of do the right thing, but deep down he doesn't want to admit it, and so he comes off as a little standoffish. I think he joins and stays with the X-Men because they're his family that he doesn't want to admit that he has. He can be very hard-headed and stubborn at times, but he does care about the X-Men, and I think deep down he really wants to do the right thing, but he's also trying to figure it out himself, and he's trying to find out who he is and what he represents and his place in the world. I don't know if I'm explaining this to the best of my ability. He's a very complex character, and I'm still learning about Gambit. I'm still kind of figuring him out, but I do really like him, and there's something about him that compels me toward him, and I do think he's very interesting. On my list, number 5 is going to be Nightcrawler. I really like Nightcrawler, and I think he is one of the most intriguing characters of the X-Men because there's a lot of different, like, multifaceted layers to him. There's just this ironic sense of beauty in him because he's got this strong sense of faith and Catholicism, and he's very spiritual, but his physical appearance looks like a devil, so there's that kind of interplay there that makes things a little bit more complex. And along with that comes an internal struggle. Kurt is always trying to do the right thing and prove to himself and others that he is a good person, and I think that's why he initially joined the X-Men and has stayed with the X-Men for so long, is because he's trying to prove and show that he's a good person. He wants to do the right thing, but there's also something deep down within him that believes that he is the devil, and there's just this evil side to him that he's just afraid of letting loose. He found the X-Men, and they quickly became his friends and his family, and everybody around him was just so supportive, and he kept them close because he had never been around people that really trusted and believed in him so much. And another trait of his is just being able to put others before himself and to sacrifice, and we've seen that time and time again. In fact, in Jonathan Hickman's House of X Powers of 10 story, Nightcrawler has like one of the coolest scenes in the entire book. Bro, him, Wolverine, Cyclops, Mystique, and some of the other mutants are on this like desperate final attempt to like save all of mutant kind, and he's about to sacrifice his life so that Wolverine can do the finishing blow to this machine that's like destined to eliminate all of the mutants. And Wolverine is like looking at him, and he's concerned because he doesn't know what the afterlife holds for someone like him, and Nightcrawler just kind of turns around, looks at him in the face, puts his hand on his arm, and says these words. He says, "When you wake from this earthly slumber, my friend, look at me. I will be there waiting for you, radiant and with open arms." And oh, it's so beautiful. I love Nightcrawler so much. He just got this ability to inspire, uplift, and just motivate other characters. And he has even become the leader of the X-Men multiple times. And he's just got this charming, charismatic presence to him. I really like Nightcrawler. He's a very complex character. There's a lot of layers to him, and I also think he just really looks cool. His design looks awesome. His mutant ability of teleportation is just super cool, and that iconic BAMF is just so good. Moving down the list, we have at number 4 is going to be Beast. I'll admit, I never was a Beast fan for the longest time, and I never found what was so interesting about this character until I read Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men run. Man, his run changed my entire perspective on Beast, and it made me a Beast fan. In that first story of Joss Whedon's run, it deals with this mutant cure, and Beast is kind of going through this internal struggle of whether or not he should take it. And he gets into this little fight with Wolverine because Logan is like, no, you can't take this cure because you're an X-Men. You're one of the leaders, and you're supposed to represent what it means to be an X-Men, to be a mutant, and what is that going to mean if you take the cure? What is it going to mean for all of those people out there, those young individuals who have mutant abilities, who are trying to find a home, who are trying to find a place where they belong? What is that going to mean to all of them if they see you quit, if they see you take the cure? But then Beast responds to him by saying, you don't know what it's like to look different, to have your mutant power manifest and make you look different from all the other people. He never had a mutant ability that was just visually cool looking. He never had something to show off and display in a cool manner. He was just someone who had big feet, blue and furry. And this is something that Hank really struggles with because he wants to be like everyone else. He wants to fit in. Outside of this, Beast is just one of those good-natured beings who does the right thing. He's kind of soft-spoken. He's intelligent. He's very smart. He's not arrogant, he's not prideful, he keeps everyone accountable for their actions, and he's really the gauge, the moral compass of this team. I really like Beast. He is number 4. All right, we're down to my top 3. Number 3 for me is probably the character that everybody has been waiting for, and that is going to be Wolverine. One of the things that really stands out to me about this character and why I love him so much is his sadness, his brokenness as a character. He's got this very tragic backstory. He carries around this emotional weight, this baggage to him. He's had these very traumatic and dark experiences that have molded him into the character that he is. He's afraid to get close to people out of his fear of losing them. He doesn't want to hurt the people around him. And I think a lot of the times he himself doesn't even believe that he's good, that he's a hero. And there's just something very heartbreaking about that because you as the reader know that he is a hero. He does the right thing. He's been part of the X-Men. He fights for what's right. But for him, he doesn't trust himself completely. He doubts himself a lot. He doesn't believe in his potential as a character. And sometimes it's just very sad. It's one of the reasons why Logan was such a good movie is because they really showed the brokenness, the depressing aspects of this character. You know, he's a lot of ways like Spider-Man in the sense of he can't have what he always wants. He's lost so many people, he's gone through so many dark times, and that's made him a very lonely character. That's made him feel empty, and that's why he blocks himself off from everyone else. He puts these barriers up around him and thinks that people just think that he's very independent, he's on his own, you know, he's got it figured out, he's just tough, but really deep down, he doesn't know who he is. If you haven't read the Old Man Logan story, you should definitely go check that out. Even though it doesn't take place in the main Marvel 616 universe, it still represents him very, very well. In that story, he's just broken down, he's beaten, he just has given up on life. The world is dark and run by villains, and he was tricked by someone into killing all of his friends, and then he eventually loses his only family that he has, and then just becomes absolutely savage at the end of the story, and it's awesome. You should definitely go read that story. I highly recommend it. It's so cool. It has some of the most badass Wolverine moments, but it also highlights the true somberness of this character. Wolverine is just also a character who shines in no matter what kind of aspect or environment you put him in. He's just a very versatile character. And I also think that he's just got one of the most unique superpowers, just being able to have like extended claws come out of his fist, and he's completely made out of adamantium. He has extremely good senses. He's one of the best trackers in the Marvel universe. He's very skilled in combat. I love the yellow iconic suit, and I also like his healing factor. And at the end of the day, he fights for Charles Xavier's vision and for mutants, and he does become a pretty good leader and a good team member of the X-Men. So yeah, I like him all around. Definitely Wolverine, number 3. My runner-up, number 2, is going to be a character who I feel like is not very popular, but I love this character so much, and that is going to be Angel. More specifically, Archangel. I love this character so much. I really like him. He's multifaceted, he's super complex. I always commend writers who take on the challenge of writing Archangel and showing him off in a good light, because he's just a really hard character to portray and get right. So Angel was one of the original X-Men members, and his mutant ability manifested in the form of just having wings on his back so that he could fly. And you know, it wasn't a very interesting power to have. He could just fly, and there are a lot of other characters in Marvel Comics who can fly, but that's their secondary ability. They can do other things, and so just having the angel wings was kind of bland. And on top of that, Warren was very wealthy and had that kind of rich person personality, and he was just kind of uninteresting, and there wasn't a lot of people who really liked him. But then you had Angel transitioning to Archangel by Apocalypse when he transformed him into one of his 4 horsemen. He had these metallic looking wings that were really cool. His skin turned blue. His appearance in general just became so much better, and he was able to like throw these metal daggers out of his wings. He could fly much faster. He was much better at combat, and he was turned into this bloodthirsty, this aggressive, lethal killing machine. He looked so much cooler. He could do a lot more now, and he was regarded as a true physical threat, someone who was actually dangerous, someone who actually could kill you and would do it. And I was a fan of his transition, his completely 180 transition from being Angel, this pompous, rich, uninteresting person, to this goth Archangel character who had this murderous intent in his eyes. But the reason why I love this character, I mean, I liked Angel okay, decently, but it wasn't until he was transformed into Archangel by Apocalypse where I really liked this character. Because after his transformation, there was a time where he did revert back to just being Angel, but he never completely lost the Archangel personality. And that's what's really cool about this, is because he's got a dual personality. He's not just Archangel, and he's not just Angel. He's got both of these personas inside of him, and he just kind of switches between the two. There was this permanent change within him after Apocalypse, and Archangel has always been inside of him, and he struggles, you know, being a good person, trying to control the beast. That's really what it comes down to. Now there's this dynamic where there's 2 personalities going on, and Warren is in between trying to keep both of those lives separate from each other, trying to keep, you know, Archangel hidden away, controlled, suppressed, and so that he can't succumb to the rage of Archangel. He's struggling to find himself and prove who he really is. He's this character that's lost, sad, tragic, and alone, but there's also a side to him that is still fighting. He still wants to do the right thing, who doesn't want to give up. I'm telling you right now, one of the best stories on this character is by Rick Remender in his Uncanny X-Force run. The X-Force team is a group of Black Ops mutants who are okay making the hard decisions. They're okay with killing and doing the things that the normal X-Men were never fit for doing. This team was composed of Psylocke, Phantom X, Deadpool, Archangel, and Wolverine, and eventually I think Nightcrawler and some others joined the team, but it was this amazing run. And there was this story called the Dark Angel Saga that's really good, and Rick Remender wrote this phenomenally. But yeah, love him, he's so good, great character, but we're gonna go ahead and keep moving on. Number 1 for me, my most all-time favorite X-Men is going to be Cyclops. I love this dude so much. He deserves to be number 1. Cyclops is such an amazing character, and the X-Men movies just kind of pissed on him so hard. I don't even know where to start. There are so many things that I like about Cyclops. Let's just go ahead and start with his abilities. His mutant power is his optic blast, and as a kid I just thought that was so cool to be able to shoot lasers out of his eyes. In fact, they aren't heat blasts, like they're optic beams that are from some alternate universe. Like it's weird, but nonetheless I thought it was super cool, and he can't control his power, and it does more harm than good, and I think that is an excellent side of this character. And it adds another layer to this character. He could have been just this guy who shot optic blasts from his eyes, but now there's this internal struggle within him of him having to control it, him not being able to see, hurting the people around him, and it takes a toll on him. So Charles Xavier recruits him, makes him a member of the X-Men, and trains him how to use his abilities and control it. So yeah, his mutant power is super cool, but that's not the reason I really like Cyclops. I love Cyclops because he is the leader of the X-Men. He knows how to lead. He knows how to inspire and rally people. He knows how to make the hard decisions. And that's a quality that's not only important but necessary for a team, especially like the X-Men. The ability to look at the situation that you are in, the ability to be uncomfortable in it but still know to make the right decision, to choose the lesser of two evils, to save a group of people at the expense of another, to sacrifice for the greater good, and to understand that sometimes the best option is an option that might not settle within your gut very well. And sometimes those options might have some negative consequences, but at the end of the day, Cyclops stands behind his decisions full-heartedly and recognizes that it was in the best interest for his people. Being a leader is hard, and Cyclops understands that, and that's why he stepped into the role, is because he could make those hard decisions. He loves his X-Men, he loves Charles Xavier's vision, and that's the other part that really makes him very interesting, is that Cyclops' loyalty is unmatched, unparalleled. This is why Charles Xavier trusts him so much, is because he carries out his vision. He is the means to make Charles Xavier's visions and his goals come into fruition. Cyclops is the most important piece of Charles Xavier's whole philosophy of coexistence. He has complete, utter, unwavering faith in what Charles Xavier believes. And that's what makes him such a good character. He's that loyal soldier that'll always stand behind you and he'll do whatever you ask. But he's also a leader and is able to take charge and command. And although Cyclops trusts Charles Xavier, the other X-Men trust Cyclops just as much. Cyclops loves the X-Men. He loves his brothers and sisters so much, and he will do anything in his power to protect them. And he's one of the best strategists, one of the best tactical thinkers. Like Captain America, he's on par with him, and that's why he's the leader of the X-Men. He has even stepped away sometimes from Charles Xavier's vision and his leadership and has completely become his own character with his own values. This is something that distinguishes him from the other X-Men, is he doesn't just blindly follow. There might be some times where he has to step away from Charles Xavier's leadership and break apart from that. And a good leader, a good soldier knows when to do that, when to follow commands and do what's asked, but also do what's morally obligated. Man, I love Cyclops. He's such a good character. I love him with all my heart. He's always been my favorite X-Men, and it brought me to tears what they did in the X-Men movies, and I hope when the MCU does the X-Men, they do Cyclops right. They justify him, they make him cool and epic, and they really step into some of these themes and values that are important to him as a character that I just talked about. Yeah, he's so good. Love Cyclops. Definitely my #1 X-Men. And I could talk about him for days, but I'm going to end it right here. That's going to be my top 10 favorite X-Men. I bet you can tell that I love these characters so much. I hope that you learned a little bit more about these characters and why I love them. You can connect with on a personal level, and at the end of the day, that's why I really like all of the X-Men, is because they're so relatable. They're not just a group of superpowered beings who just go out there and do the right thing. They stand for things, they represent things, and on a deeper level, they're the perspective of the world that we see. They're the lens that we see reality, and I think that's important. But yeah, love the X-Men, and I always will. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. Please like and subscribe for more superhero content, and share your thoughts of my top 10 X-Men down in the comments below. You can also check out some of my other videos right over here, and be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok for more content and updates. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and stay super.